welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm your coming in approximately 17 months, but not the holiday season, host Madelyn.
I'm your host. Oh no, GTA 6 is releasing then. No! Host Emma.
And thanks for tuning into this week's show. It's my side quest. And this week, I know you were thinking, oh, Madelyn, it's going to be autumn games or back to school games or games.
You always joke about this, but you've never actually chosen like a seasonal.
That's not true. I definitely have. The problem is I've already done them all.
Like Father's Day, Mother's Day doesn't count.
I'm sure I've done games about love. I am sure I have done, maybe I'll do gift giving in games when we get to.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah, somebody write that down. Every time my side quest comes up, I'm like, I can't have a single thought about gaming. I've never thought about a game in my life.
Yeah. Well, what are we talking about today, Mel?
We're talking about release dates and release timing. We are not really talking about delays, which we have talked about
A while ago.
So if you're only listening to it now, how would you describe your listening behavior? Good. You got it, listener. Nice. So yeah, we're talking about release timing. Why are we talking about this? Well, obviously we are talking about this because this week, Hollow Knight Silksong. Is that even the name of it? Is it just called Silksong?
I think it's still Hollow Knight Silksong.
Okay. HKS. The good ship HKS came out after being sort of announced with no date. Who knows how long ago.
Well, it was originally supposed to be just a DLC for Hollow Knight.
Right. And then they thought, oh no, we'll do more. And then they thought, why doesn't everybody release games like this?
What?
I feel like yous were like, they read an interview where they were like, oh, we just decided to do it this way.
It wasn't about they just kept working on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't really anything to do with their release date. They were like, they couldn't stop themselves from working on it, was why it took so long, not because they got stuck or anything.
Anyway, the game was finally announced like 2 weeks ago and released on Thursday, I think, something like that.
I don't know. It
This
feels
week's
like it
war.
was ages ago already, so.
It's out there this week. And that's what inspired this week's side quest was, I had read a little bit. I mean, obviously the announcement of a release date for Silksong, bit of a meme. And so the fact that it finally actually happened, bit of a meme.
Yes.
And also I read several articles about like every other indie game in existence that was coming out the first week of September going, not anymore.
Yes.
No, we're not.
Yeah, the problem was for other indies, and again, I don't really think, there's a lot of discourse about Silksong's release date and release price and all this other stuff, and I don't really think any of that is on Team Cherry to do anything about. It's just people talking about it. But they did announce the release date. They didn't shadow drop it, thankfully, but they did announce it just 2 weeks ahead of time. So a lot of indies who had announced their date more ahead of time were suddenly faced with the black hole known as Hornet.
Yeah. And it does, having now read about what you should be thinking about when you release your game, yeah, it does suck. Because, like, the big thing that everyone agrees that you need to think about is, well, if there's another game kind of in your lane that's coming out at the same time, you should think about that.
Yeah.
And it's rough when the game just decides, I guess I'm coming out now.
I did think it was really funny of, like, one of the ones that delayed was Bennett Foddy's new game, Baby Steps. And, like, they must have had that ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it was in one of the interviews I read on IGN was someone who was talking about, like, the Devolver Digital person who was talking about Baby Steps. And, like, they were like, yeah, that was on my, like, that's on my radar. Deltarune was on my radar. GTA 6 obviously on everyone's radar. So I do wonder if they were like, just in case, maybe we should have this like Hornet model that we can put in the game.
That's really funny. That's a really funny thing to have to ask your marketing team for.
I know.
Be like, please, like, just in case, we need to be ready to go viral.
Yeah.
Unless you think somebody called Bennett and was like, hey, just so you know.
Ahead of time?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. No, the way the interview was like, they talked about it and decided that they just pushed theirs like 2 weeks. It's coming out at the end of September now rather than the beginning of September. But they wanted some space for there to be spotlight on their game, so they decided to push it a couple weeks.
Well, it just sounded like they didn't want to chance it.
I mean, that's the thing too, right? A lot of these interviews are like publishers talking with the developers and being like, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to push it. What do you think? You know? And most of them seem to have agreed to push it. And it's because I think a few interviews I read use this language of like, you know, they might have been both from Demon School. It might have been the developer of Demon School and someone who is marketing Demon School. And maybe that's why they use the same phrasing. But it's like, you can't A/B test reality.
Oh, yeah.
Like, theoretically, maybe if you released right next to Silksong, it would be fine or even beneficial. But it's hard to know that until you do it. And if you do it and, in fact, it's not fine or not beneficial, then it's too late. It's out there.
I did read one article about, I guess, the developers of Jet Runner. Not a game that I've heard of, but apparently a game more people have heard of because they did stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
And so because all of these other indies were like, delay, they were able to break into more of these spotlight features and got like a bunch of wish lists out of it, which is, of course, the only thing that matters.
It is, actually, on Steam.
I mean, I was giggling a little, but I was being serious.
That's why every showcase you will watch, if you ever watch any of like the minor showcases during like Summer Games Fest or Gamescom or whatever, they will always say wish list. They've really pivoted to that language in recent years, and that's because like that is like what you really want to do is get on like one of Steam's like new and trending or popular upcoming or like notable, whatever those things are called that are on their front page. And there's only 10 slots on those. So you have to get some nebulous number of wish lists in order to get your game like featured on the front page. And then if you can do that, that leads to a lot more wish lists.
So let's get into it. Emma, we did a bunch of research for the show, and I'm so glad that you're going to be able to announce the best day of the year to release a video game. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Obviously, it's September 32nd.
Woo! Release your game that day.
Yeah. No, there isn't one. There's a lot of theories and stuff, but really there isn't one.
So, rolling back time a little bit, when you released your game, used to be something that had, like, you had to think carefully about retailers, right? Like, if you were to roll back pre-Steam and be like, okay, when are we thinking about releasing a game? Probably you are aiming for pre-holiday season on the shelf at GameStop. Not that it was called GameStop then.
To be fair, for AAA games, you are probably still aiming for that.
That's true. For the most part. Maybe.
Not necessarily on shelves, but holidays is still a big game buying time.
Sure. And then, instead of fighting for space in the trending games categories on the front page, you were literally fighting for, is there space for my box?
Yeah.
On the shelf. So it's interesting to think about, oh, there used to be physical, actual ramifications for when, like, there was literally only so many games that could be sold in a store.
Yeah.
And now it is still sort of that, except there is literally only so many games that anyone's eyeballs can be on because they are buried somewhere in the digital nowhere land.
Yeah. Yeah, the the actual main problem with something like Silksong, which, Madeline alluded to it, but if you're not tapped in, it is like a cultural phenomenon among the gamers.
You can't watch a Nintendo Direct or a PlayStation Direct or a whatever Xbox.
Literally anything. Even places where it wouldn't make sense for it to show up at all.
Yeah. The comments are still sort of spammed with Silksong release Silksong.
It's a very classic image of the Silksong bug wearing a clown hat and nose.
Yeah.
For when you watch something hoping there will be Silksong and there's not Silksong.
Do we have something that's going to take its place? I mean, GTA, I guess, but it's not quite the same. GTA does technically have a release date.
I don't think there's anything that's like quite the same. There's obviously games that people are always looking to be there, right? Kingdom Hearts.
Where is Kingdom Hearts 4?
They did release a small update recently saying that both it and Remake Part 3 are on schedule and proceeding well. So
on what schedule?
On their schedule. On whatever schedule that they have.
Release the schedule.
We can talk about Kingdom Hearts again when we talk about when do you announce your game.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an unfortunate situation, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, I don't really think there's anything quite like this, like at this scale, in which I mean actually quite small.
Yeah.
It's a $20 game. So yeah, it's a cultural phenomenon. And so the reason that a lot of indies are moving out of its way is like less because it's direct competition and more because it's like attention competition. And that's for both gamers themselves, right? And also for streamers, which is sort of the main form of indie marketing these days.
Yeah, we won't even talk about the press here because as every single one of these articles said, you're not getting press for your indie game.
Yeah, it's you get press for your indie game once it is already popular.
Yeah.
Is sort of how it works.
Or if you're an A&a-half game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you have already made something that somebody liked or somehow went viral, like you have to have something that has already happened to you.
For something like even if you did where like I really want press, right, and you thought you would cover it, like Silksong did not release review codes because it didn't have to, and also some Kickstarter promises apparently, but like that just means that press is really going to be crunching, and like guides writers and whatever are going to be crunching around the time that is released.
Well, they were already going to
write
be. Even
about
if they had said, here's the review code right here, right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, if you release like a little after Silksong, you might be like, well, that's okay. But actually, no, everybody will still be consumed with Silksong.
Right. Because, it's all a business, right? They know, like, that's what people are going to be going to the site to read about. Yeah. And for better or for worse, that means that there's going to be 100 articles about every tiny little thing in Silksong because SEO, baby, that's what we got to do.
Yeah. There's a great Aftermath had a conversation with Brandon Sheffield, who is a developer on Demon School, which is one of the games that I was looking forward to that delayed out to get away from Silksong. On Aftermath, and they talked about a lot of things, but specifically about like why they delayed, which was mostly like they agreed with their publisher, but it was their publisher who essentially asked them to. And he was essentially saying like your best shot at making money as an indie game is to be that indie game of the week that people are talking about.
Yeah,
because that gets curious people to then check out your game. And the week that Silksong releases, the indie game of the week is Silksong. Right.
Exactly.
He also was talking about, like, in games, in a way that, like, other industries don't really do, is that games do try to, like, get out of each other's way.
Mm-hmm.
rather because of that like mindshare thing, or because games are long. People buy a game and then they play that game for a while, right? So like maybe you're buying 1 or 2 games a month if you're a dedicated gamer, right?
Yeah, it does preclude the kind of viral Barbenheimer situation. Although, you know, we loved the Animal Crossing Doom vibe there. But Animal Crossing is such a different one. Neither of those games needed to have any concern about their launch. 2, Animal Crossing in particular is not a game that actually competes with other games, really, in the same way for your time. I mean, it did because of when it came out. But in a normal situation, it's like, oh yes, you can play your half hour of Animal Crossing a day and then go play Doom.
Yes. There's also just the fact that for indie games especially that have relied on like social media for years to drive engagement, those tools don't really exist anymore, actually.
Yep.
Twitter is in the words of Sheffield, a Nazi hellscape, which I think correct. So it's hard to be like, oh, we're viral on Twitter with all the bots.
Right. You know, maybe one day the bots will play games.
And stuff like TikTok is harder to like it has to be very organic in a way that like Twitter did not necessarily. Yeah. You know, it's a very different kind of platform in that way.
You have to be like able to do video.
Yeah.
You know, there's like all sorts of things that go into that are different than can I schedule a vaguely funny tweet.
Yeah. So there's just less avenues to gain traction, and I think this affects like AAA games too. Like, I don't know if I think about this, like if Yakuza 0 came out now, would it get the same kind of following that it did if it was harder to share clips of Kiryu recruiting a chicken?
Right.
Anywhere anyone could see them. You know?
Almost certainly, yeah. I mean, I agree with that. No.
So that's why if something like Silksong is released, you consider getting out of its wake.
Yeah.
And next year, I'm very curious next year if a lot of AAA games don't specifically say a release date for until very close, in the hopes that they will not hit the Grand Theft Auto 6 apocalypse.
Well, they have a date right now, right? It's May 26th, 2026.
Do they have a specific date? For some reason, I just thought it was 2026 right now.
I read somewhere that it's May 26th, 2026.
In the same way that I didn't buy Silksong, I probably will not be buying GTA 6, so...
Yeah. So you could definitely... God, can you imagine, by the way, if you're like, oh, I'm going to release in early May, and they were like, we're going to release it early.
I seriously doubt that would ever happen.
But... I doubt it would ever happen too, but can you, like, how mad would you be?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting game to play of like, okay, like you probably don't want to release it then, but also you probably don't want to release it like 6 weeks later, just in case.
For the delay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although that actually is like an advice that I found every once in a while that's like, yeah, actually, if you're like a Metroidvania, maybe you do want to release like 3 weeks after Silksong.
Yeah, because people will be looking for something else.
Yes. But that's hard to gauge ahead of time.
Yeah. You gotta do some insider trading, really. Yeah. Okay, so I'm a developer. I've got a game. Emma, when should I release it?
Well, not during a Steam sale.
Absolutely not. That is also the consistent piece of advice, is do not release it during a Steam sale, for the love of God.
Or really during Next Fest, even.
Yeah.
Steam has so many sales now. Specifically, it's kind of like the big seasonal ones. Valve actually has like language for developers releasing a game being like, don't release it during sales times.
Yeah.
Like what it says is like, remember, during these sales events, the entire front page of the Steam store shifts to a different layout. As always, it's possible to launch your game during these seasonal sales, but visibility for new releases is significantly reduced. Apparently, they also discourage or stop you sometimes from launching on Saturday or Sunday since their support staff isn't working.
By the way, that's crazy, I have to say.
Or less of their support staff. I don't know.
Okay, less maybe. I still think I'm like, that's actually unbelievable that you run like almost the only game storefront. I know that's not true. But like you run the grocery store,
Sure.
basically. And you're like, no, like our support staff, like there's not a weekend staff. Crazy.
Even if there is a weekend staff, it's not the regular staff, right? So
I guess I feel like if you're running something as big as Steam, that you should be able to have people who work on the weekends who are just as good as the people who work during the week. But what do I know?
Well, anyway, this is just from one site.
No, I know. It was, but I read your note on that. And I was like, that's so funny and does feel like correct for Steam.
Yeah.
But they're like, I don't know, like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
I'd respect it.
I respect it.
Should be Monday through Thursday.
Sorry, I respect it for each individual employee.
Yeah.
But for a company that size, you could institute a 4-day work week that is staggered.
Anyway,
or not.
They don't want you to really release on the weekend, which I do feel like circumstantially I've noticed is true.
Yeah.
Tuesday is often when they will often do maintenance on Tuesdays if they're doing maintenance. So you probably don't want to release your game while Steam is doing maintenance.
Yeah, probably bad.
So there's that too. I also think it's like there was some discussion of like what time to release it, and like it's good to have like the European audience in the evening buying it, and then again the North and South American audience is buying it again in the evening, right? So you get 2 waves of purchases in one day.
Unless you think your game is going to be big in China.
Yes, in which case you release it so that it's a convenient time for, like, even earlier, essentially. Mm-hmm. So it's a convenient time for Chinese gamers.
But really the most important thing is to release it at a time where you can tell 10 of your closest friends to buy it and immediately write a review.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've ever gone on Steam, you will often see like a little preview of how...
And by the way, if you haven't gone on Steam, how did you get here?
They're mobile gamers.
We talk about mobile games like once a year.
That's
not true. Apple Arcade, best deal in gaming.
I know, I was going to say they came because they heard that we were talking up Apple Arcade.
I keep paying for it.
Or maybe they're exclusively console gamers, you know?
Sure.
They buy their FIFA, and that's it. Welcome, we love you.
Continue.
Yeah, if you look on Steam, there's often like a little preview next to whatever game you're looking at with how reviews are, which can be like, like positive, mostly positive, very positive, overwhelmingly positive, mostly negative, mixed, whatever. And there's different like thresholds for when your game is marked with a certain amount. So like you get positive when you get 10 positive reviews, right? Before that, you just have like 5 user reviews. And then I think you get like very, very positive when you have 100 reviews that are above a certain threshold of positivity. Otherwise you'll hit like the mostly positive or mixed or whatever. And then overwhelmingly positive is I think when you hit 1,000 reviews that are some threshold of positive. They did just add like you can check language specific or like region specific reviews. So like if you see something as mixed and like you look through, like maybe it's just one region that's mixed because the translation is bad, which you can see on Silksong right now, where the simplified Chinese translation is apparently pretty bad. So they have a mixed review score among those reviewers.
Whoops.
Helpful, because sometimes localizations are really bad. in certain languages.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like it is a useful resource to be able to check, like, oh, okay.
Like, oh, they hate it.
They hate us.
I did read one article, though, that did say, like, okay, regardless of what the score is, getting to 10 is going to significantly algorithmically do something for you. It actually doesn't matter what those reviews are. Even if they are kind of mid or bad, just getting to 10 reviews creates a significant bump.
Yeah. But yeah, the more, reviews and downloads that you can get over your first day, the more likely you're on the, like, new and trending tab on Steam, which, of course, gets you more because you're on the new and trending tab on Steam.
It's really all about snowball effect. If you can't get that initial snowball, you are in trouble.
Yeah.
I was reading also, like, okay, how do you, not to talk about delays, but, like, how do you know to delay a game for that reason? Right? Emma was talking about wish lists, which are, again, the thing. The only thing that matters in terms of getting your game that people don't know about to be known about. There's no other way. And so the big dream spot, right, yes, is popular upcoming. Just 10 slots. And Steam is not very transparent about its algorithm or exactly how it determines what games are going in there. But what people do know is that you definitely have to have at least 7,000 wish lists to hit it. That number might change, like there's probably a higher threshold sometimes depending on what you're up against or like what's popular, but like, you definitely have to have 7,000. You will not make it if you don't have 7,000.
The common number I used to hear several years ago now, to be fair, was actually like you should have 10,000.
Great. I mean, I just mean like, I read 7, but yes, probably most of the time, the actual threshold is higher.
Yeah.
However, so basically, if in the lead up to your game, you are feeling close to whatever threshold the latest article you've read has decided is the thing to hit, right? Then hold on to it. But if you are not anywhere close, you should consider delaying because, yeah, you're just not going to make it. It is not going to get seen.
It can be a bit of a double-edged sword, though, because the longer your game is on Steam and the longer people have been wishlisting it, the more of those people who have wishlisted it have forgotten it.
Yeah.
And those aren't real wish lists, right?
Right.
Or they're not playing games anymore, or they're not playing games on Steam anymore, or any number of things, right? Of your number, you probably have a bunch of stale wish lists that aren't actually going to directly turn into sales.
It's interesting, too, that all of the writing about this has to do with Steam. I don't think I read a single article that was, how do you time your release window on the PlayStation Store?
Because I really think for indies, Steam is the seller.
Yeah.
Maybe Switch. But of course, we've talked about like the problems.
Yes, the Switch eShop is a disaster. So there's nothing you can do there. The thing you can do there is discount your game 99%.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter when you release it.
But if you're really banking on PlayStation or Xbox, you probably have like a PlayStation Plus and or Game Pass deal.
That's true.
Which I think obviously would the release timing would probably be up to the Sony and or Microsoft, right?
Speaking of, do you think that the rise of, Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus exclusive type things is going to lead us to see more games shadow dropped? I was reading a little bit about that and a lot of kind of forum threads from a couple years ago. And I think I agree with people of a couple years ago that, like, why would you do this unless you're something really big, right? Or unless you have the benefit of being in like an Xbox, like your Hi-Fi Rush, right? Mm-hmm. And you're gonna have a fun trailer, and you're immediately gonna appear. But even that one, like, why would you do this if you expect people to purchase your game? All right.
Yeah, and there's mixed reports on whether that worked for Hi-Fi Rush or not.
Sure.
Clearly.
Well, they're dead now, so they killed.
They're
them
not
all.
dead. They bought the Crafton bought them, I think.
Okay, not before they were all killed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Phil Spencer came and killed them in Minecraft. And that's how he fired them.
He literally doomed them.
That's how you get fired at X. I'm sorry, that's not funny. They have fired a lot of people this year. What were you saying? Like more shadow drops? Yeah, I don't know. It's unclear whether that really works at all. You know? Like, even Silksong, which is a game that could have released whatever it wanted, still gave 2 weeks notice. And I think it's just because people don't have disposable money right now.
Sure.
So having some amount of, like, planning to buy a game helps them. And also people are busy. You know, so when a game gets shadow dropped, it's hard for them to be like, oh yeah, I'll drop everything and play this.
Yeah,
I really fall for shadow drop demos.
Sure.
But I don't know if I've ever been like, oh, it's the game's out today. Okay, I'm gonna go buy it right now. You know?
It's a big gamble, and it does feel like something that could only be viable in a subscription model at this point. If that's like a hype thing. And then hopefully you've already got your money. It's interesting, though, to think about. I mean, this whole thing is kind of interesting to think about, the difference in how things are released and announced across media, right? The total lack of a game. So talking about times of year for game release, right? There's all sorts of like fun statistical analysis of this online that basically comes down to it's probably kind of trickier to release it in Q4, potentially, just because of like what you're up against. Like, you know, of course you're like thinking, oh, holidays, but you're also up against probably some of the biggest AAA games out there.
Yes.
And other than that, you should probably just pay attention to like other context about your game. But there's probably not a best time of year. There was one that I read that was like, there's 2 weeks a year where you should really release your game. The rest of it is bad. Which I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? Oh, yes. But in games, like one thing that really drives releases or openings or launches or whatever in other media is awards.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, there's a reason that, like, half of the Broadway season opens in the last week of Tony eligibility, right? Because the recency bias is real. And there's a reason that all of the kind of, not all, but like the majority of Oscar bait type movies come out at the same time. And TV is not this, right? But there's like a fixed TV schedule.
Yeah.
Right? Less so now, I guess. A little bit less so now, for sure. And maybe we will see more. I don't track the release of awards bait television shows enough to tell you if we're going into they're releasing to bait the Emmys and Golden Globes, but like probably that comes. But the Game Awards is never going to happen.
No.
Not ever.
I mean, it's interesting. I feel like there has been some discussion of like, you know, there is some recency bias it feels like there's some recency bias in the nominees, but they're already releasing around that time anyway to hit the holidays, more for monetary purposes than anything. So that might be sort of a coincidence, right? If that's just when the big AAA titles that everyone plays are releasing anyway, right?
Look, certainly winning an award at the Game Awards has a sales impact, of course.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, for certain types of games,
yeah,
at least. I'm sure that Hades winning, I mean, that was already a successful game, but I'm sure meant something to them financially.
Sure.
But it's just like, yeah, it's just not at all, as we've talked about many, many times, there is no parallel to awards for video games to what they mean in any other format.
Yeah.
And so there's just not like that kind of clumping.
I mean,
there's just no incentive.
Like festival circuit that's somewhat comparable to film, where games that aren't even released yet get awards, right? Because they go to the festival. Yeah. But in terms of like a big award ceremony, no. And it's not even like the Game Awards could be like the most professional, well done award show ever. I just think that games inherently are hard to fit into the same model as movies and TV.
Well, it's interesting to think about movies, isn't it? Right?
True.
Thanks, Emma. No, I just mean, okay, if a TV show wins an award, right? If you win the best drama, best comedy, whatever, Emmy, right? Mm-hmm. That means something for the continued life of your show, probably. Maybe, at least.
Yeah.
And it probably means something for the writers associated with the game and their careers, and the actors too. But for movies, right, why are we after an Oscar? DVD sales? That's not a thing anymore.
Well, it probably gets you work as
sure,
an individual.
I understand why an actor or a writer is up for an Oscar, but they aren't really the people who are paying for those campaigns.
Well, I mean, there are production companies. It must mean something for the production company.
That's true. I'm just kind of curious what the monetary payoff is these days, because it's all about money. It's all about money, 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 right?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you can sell it to a streamer for more.
Aren't almost all of these already on streamers by the time They are, because I remember looking into, well, not all of them, but I feel like the vast majority of Best Picture nominees already have a streamer deal.
Maybe you can use it to say, Netflix, let me put my movie in theaters for longer.
But isn't Netflix the one who's paying for the campaign? It's just interesting. I wish I should be talking about video games, but I'm interested in why are we after an Oscar in the year, I guess, next 2026?
I guess it's just ingrained. I don't know.
Yeah,
some cultural legitimacy or whatever.
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting. What is the model for any entertainment property to make money in
True.
2025? That's really what I'm asking.
I mean, in this interview with Brandon Sheffield, he said, specifically for Demon School to break even, it needs to sell 100,000 copies. Mm-hmm. Based on, their small team living on basic living wages.
Yeah.
It needs to sell 100,000 copies. And they have a publisher, so they are not, on the hook if it fails, right? The publisher is on the hook if it fails. Right. But you think about that for other indie games that release, and it's you really have to, especially the longer it takes you, which is the other risk of a delay, right? You're spending money, it's more time that you are spending money without making money.
Yep.
But you have to think about what's the trade-offs here.
All right, so speaking of delays, all right, fine. I understand the things I should think about to pick a release date, right? And I've picked it. I've picked my date. It's good. There's not any other games that I think are going to compete with me. I think I can get some streamers to play the game. Grand Theft Auto is definitely not coming out. I've killed Team Cherry, so they can't make a third one that's going to come out the same day as my game.
We've introduced them to Jira, and we won't let them out of the locked room.
That's right.
Until they understand it.
That's right. So now, when should I tell people?
Yeah, it's tough.
Fortunately, Emma has the answer for you.
I do not have the probably relatively soon before your release date. I feel like the release, saying your release date too early problem is one that plagues AAA more than indies, I think. Or it's not even announcing release date, even announcing that your game exists too early can be a bit of a problem, right? And sometimes that's okay because you're Team Cherry, I guess. And sometimes that's less okay if you're Lost Soul Aside, for example. Mm-hmm.
Yes, notably, right? We've talked about this before. If you're an indie, you might need to announce your game somewhat too early. because somebody needs to know about it for you to get some money.
Yes.
And that's less of a factor at a AAA scale, of course, because of the money in play. But
yeah, I guess there's different problems, actually, of, like, as an indie, you have to balance, like, okay, I have to announce this and then build up a fandom, right, before release so that people will buy it.
Yeah.
So you do have to really say, like, you can't really be like, here's my game, the first time I'm showing it, it's out in 3 weeks. Unless it's really freaking cool.
Yeah, you really need to know you have something if you're going to do that.
You can't really do that. So that's an interesting conundrum on the indie side. But for the AAA side, you have the suits.
The suits.
The suits. And they're saying, hey, yo, we want it by this quarter or by the end of the fiscal year or whatever. Yeah. And so that's when you're going to release it. And I'm sure that won't be a problem. And so, you know, a game might get announced early because they think it's going to be done sooner, or there might be a release date because that's what the suits are saying they want, regardless of whether the developers are telling them that's impossible or not, right? Hence, or there was a big NVIDIA leak.
Whoops.
And everyone knows your game exists already.
God, what? Like, just the absolute worst thing that could have happened to Kingdom Hearts 4, right?
Well, it's so fascinating to me because, like, the one game that has not been announced from that big NVIDIA leak is the rumored Final Fantasy IX remake, which they've said nothing about.
Maybe they've decided they aren't doing it.
And that's kind of what I think. Like, they announced Kingdom Hearts 4 so early because, mostly probably because of this leak, because it was on there. So people knew they were working on it. But they didn't do anything with Final Fantasy IX Remake, which is so interesting to me.
I think they're done.
Maybe.
Yeah, just a nightmare scenario for Kingdom Hearts. After the Kingdom Hearts 3 debacle.
Yeah, the Kingdom Hearts 3 thing was also like, they told them to announce it way before anybody actually wanted to.
Yeah.
Which is why it felt like it took so long. Because they announced it, like, when they started development. Not, like, when it was approaching being ready.
Look, I know they're saying Kingdom Hearts 4 is on schedule, but, like, that game... When did we get that little video sneak peek? At least 2 years ago, right? Maybe more.
Well, it was announced way earlier than they wanted to again.
I know. I'm just like, oh, this sucks, man. If I don't get more this fall, I'm gonna be pissed.
I'm pretty confident that they will have something this year. But yeah, so sometimes you get, as a developer in the AAA space, get suckered into a certain release date that the suits don't recognize you're not going to hit until, like, it's approaching. Right.
Well, and that's possible on a smaller scale, too. I mean, many of these stories are older, but we have, I think, recited plenty of development stories this year from teams that were like, well, E3 was coming up, RIP, or, oh, like, we had a chance to be in a direct.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
Like, we gotta push to be ready, regardless, because that opportunity isn't coming around again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's stuff like that too, but that's less about whether the game is going to be ready or not, and more about, like, okay, there's a marketing opportunity here that we have to take.
Yeah. I like that Skyrim. I didn't really know Skyrim had an 11/11/11 release. That's fun.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to hit the funny release date.
Yeah.
I still am so charmed by Rebirth coming out on the 29th of February.
Yeah.
I think that's so funny.
Good. Good.
I know Demon School was trying to come out on a Friday the 13th. I don't think that they are, unfortunately. But, yeah.
You can't win them all.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, like everything in video games, it just seems like, oh, this is really hard.
Yeah.
You know? Like, oh, this is super hard. There's no way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's way harder to do this than anything else.
And we didn't even get into stuff like, oh, like, oops, one of the stores didn't approve my game at the last minute.
Yeah. Whoops.
Which is definitely something that can happen. So.
Yeah, like the last minute, like, uh-ohs.
Yeah.
Yeah, just games are, it's amazing that any game gets released.
Yeah. I mean, it really is just like, this is not something you can really game.
Hey.
Right? Yeah, I didn't even mean to do that, really. I'm tired. But it's not something you can be like, okay, I've found the perfect release date and this will be what brings me success, right? You can try your best to find a reasonable release date that will work for you, and then you can
hope and pray that PewDiePie plays it.
Yeah, and, you know, tweet stuff out and try your best.
And then all the bots will buy your game.
Probably. That's probably the future.
Yeah. The bot audience. The bot-audience.
They'll buy their game and then they'll sell it on t-shirts.
Seems like a decent business model to me. Okay, Emma, last chance though. Like, what's the day?
I told you, September 32nd.
All right, folks, you heard it here. September 32nd is the day to release your game. Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
What do you think is the best day to release a game? If you were releasing a game, how far in advance would you tell people about it? Would you just pick a silly release date? It would be hard for me to not do that. Do you think that you could stand against the behemoth of Hollow Knight Silksong 2 when it's announced 7 days before it comes out? If you have thoughts about this or anything else, just like personally, by the way, I'm not talking about releasing a game. Like, do you think you could survive another Hollow Knight being announced a week in advance? Would you live? But if you have thoughts on that or anything else that we talked about this week, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Blue Sky, not Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog. But most importantly, if you enjoyed the show, you ought to subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, anywhere you can find podcasts. Subscribe to Talk This. You put Silksong in the title of like one of them, and it got way more YouTube views
than
anything else. Isn't that funny? I haven't actually looked at it. It just turned up on my recommendeds or whatever, and I was like, oh, why does this one have like 10 times as many views as any of the other ones? And I'm sure it's Silksong.
It was all planned.
So hopefully I'm gonna put Silksong in the title of this one too.
I will. I'll do it. I'll keep farming that bug.
This is a hornet farm. Next week, we're talking about 2 games.
For our old game, it's Sunset Overdrive. And for our new game, it's Mind's Eye.
And in 2 weeks, it's Emma's side quest.
Bugs.
Bugs in games. Do you mean bugs or do you mean bugs?
I mean bugs.
Got it. So look forward to that.
No, I don't know yet.
Yeah. Games about hornets. Games priced at $20.
Anything that can keep putting Silksong in that title there.
Music games about threads. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for listening. Emma, send them off.
This week, I hope that your game gets released right when you want it to.